The studio lights burned like midday sun as cameras rolled on what was supposed to be a calm televised town hall. But calm shattered the second Donald Trump leaned forward and said with a smirk, "Denzel, you've played soldiers, kings, and freedom fighters. You're just acting again, this time as a political voice." There was a beat of silence. The audience collectively inhaled. Denzel Washington didn't blink. He slowly turned his head, locking eyes with Trump across the semicircle of panelists. "I'm not your movie," he said, voice low but thunderous. "And I'm not here to read your script." The words hit like a slap. A camera operator audibly gasped. A few audience members even clapped, unsure if it was safe. Trump raised a brow, clearly amused. "You got that line from training day, or did your publicist write it for you?" That's when Denzel leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes razor sharp. "I don't need a script to recognize when a man hides behind his own ego. You used to sell hope. Now you sell fear." Trump's smirk twitched. The moderator jumped in, desperate. "Gentlemen, let's keep this civil." "Civility?" Denzel interrupted, not looking away from Trump. "You buried civility under lies. And now you want respect like you earned it?" The crowd stirred again. Some stood. Phones were out, already streaming. Clips would be viral in minutes. Trump leaned back, lips tight, measuring his reply. "I ran a country, Denzel. You ran lines." That was the spark. Denzel's voice dropped, not louder, but deadlier. "And I still delivered more truth than you ever dared to." At that moment, it stopped being a panel and started being a reckoning. Trump adjusted his suit jacket like a boxer realigning after a blow. His voice, now edged with steel, cut across the table. "You talk like you know America better than me. You don't. You've performed America. I've built it." The audience murmured. Denzel raised an eyebrow, and smiled. "Built it," he said slowly. "You branded it. Plastered your name on towers, stakes, ties, and fear. That's not building, that's merchandising." Laughter erupted. Even the moderator's lips twitched. Trump didn't laugh. He leaned forward again, voice dropping. "You know what your problem is, Denzel? You're too comfortable in your Hollywood bubble. Try running a business. Try handling foreign policy. Try being me." Denzel's smile faded. "You think leading is yelling louder than everyone in the room. I think leading is listening. Something you never learned, not from a teleprompter, not from failure, not even from losing." Trump's eyes narrowed. "You think you're better than me?" "I think I never had to belittle others to matter," Denzel replied, calm as glass. The room fell silent. Then someone in the back shouted, "Let him speak." Another echoed, "Let Trump answer." The moderator raised a hand, voice trembling slightly. "Let's allow both men to." "Allow?" Denzel scoffed. "The fact that he still demands permission to disrespect anyone he pleases is the real sickness." Trump finally cracked. He slapped the table, mic thumping. "You're not the moral compass of America, Denzel." Denzel didn't flinch. "No," he said quietly. "But I'm damn tired of watching you steer it into a wall." Audience, stunned silence. Then applause. Loud, rising, unsure whether it was for courage or the collapse they were witnessing in real time. The energy in the studio was nuclear. Viewers at home were already flooding social media with hashtags like #DenzelUnscripted and #TrumpCornered. The air had shifted, from confrontation to revelation. Trump leaned back, nostrils flaring, fingers drumming the table. "You sit there acting like some moral authority. But who made you the hero, Denzel?" he snapped. "You act. I lead. You memorize lines. I make history." Denzel didn't blink. You confuse headlines with history, Donald. One vanishes in a day. The other lives in people's bones. The moderator looked stunned, caught between journalistic duty and simply witnessing a cultural earthquake. Don't forget who you're talking to, Trump warned. You think people respect you because you speak well? I built empires. I led this country. Denzel leaned in, his tone low but cutting. You led with fear. You ruled by division. And when things got hard, you pointed fingers, not a vision. Trump's eyes burned. Says the guy who makes millions pretending to be someone he's not. Pretending? Denzel snapped. No, sir. I perform characters. You live as one. A visible ripple of gasps ran through the studio. Trump looked away, as if searching for an ally in the audience, but he was alone. For the first time in the segment, the former president looked human. Defensive. Wounded. You think this is about ego? He muttered. No, Denzel replied. I think it's about truth. And the truth is, your story only works when everyone else is silent. And with that, he folded his hands, signaling he was done speaking. The silence afterward wasn't awkward. It was surgical. People weren't breathing. They were recalibrating. The silence didn't last long. From the back row, a woman stood up and shouted, "Let him finish." She wasn't pointing at Trump. The crowd began shifting. Whispers turned into waves of murmurs. Some clapped. Others just watched Trump carefully, like they were seeing him clearly for the first time. Trump forced a grin, his trademark fallback. But it didn't land. This isn't a movie, he said, gesturing toward Denzel. This is real life. And in real life, we need strong men, not actors playing brave. Denzel didn't look away. You're right, he said. This isn't a movie. Which is why we don't get multiple takes to fix what you broke. The audience broke into applause again, this time louder, more confident. The tide had turned. The moderator stepped in, clearly rattled. Gentlemen, let's stay focused on the original question about national unity. Unity? Denzel interrupted, voice tightening. Unity is not obedience. It's not silence. And it sure as hell isn't fear dressed as patriotism. Trump rolled his eyes. You've got all the right words, huh? You think quoting slogans makes you noble? No, Denzel said. But pretending to be strong by silencing others? That's the oldest script in the book. And you've been performing it since day one. Trump's hand went up, he wanted to interrupt again. But the moderator stopped him. Mr. President, let him finish. That sentence. Mr. President. Past tense. It hung in the air like a closing chapter. Trump clenched his jaw. People used to love me. Some still do, Denzel replied. But love without truth is just blind loyalty. And that's dangerous. The crowd was now fully on Denzel's side. It wasn't just about the debate anymore. It was about a feeling, one they hadn't realized they missed. Clarity. Trump shifted in his seat, face stiff with disbelief. The usual tricks, interruptions, smirks, dominance, none of them were working. Not here. Not with Denzel. He tried again, leaning forward like a seasoned performer himself. America needs toughness. Not soft lectures from someone who's spent his life in front of cameras, not battlefields. Denzel's smile was slow and quiet. Dangerous. You think because I act, I don't know pain? Struggle? Sacrifice, he said. I've buried friends. I've watched families collapse. I've spoken in prisons, hospitals, schools you've never set foot in. Don't confuse screen time with silence. The audience froze, and leaned in. Trump scoffed. Yeah. The actor with a heart. Save it for Netflix. Denzel's tone dropped an octave. You know what the difference is, Donald? When I take off the suit, the world knows I'm not a king. But you put on that red tie and still believe you are. A long, low whistle cut through the studio. The moderator held his breath. Trump barked out, "You think the crowd clapping makes you right?" "No," Denzel replied. "But the fact that you're threatened by it? That says everything." Trump opened his mouth to fire back, then stopped. He looked left, then right. The room had changed. Even his loyal eyes in the front row weren't smiling anymore. Denzel sat back, voice calm but stern. Real leadership doesn't need applause. It doesn't demand loyalty. It earns it. He turned slightly to the audience. And if you're watching this thinking, "Maybe I missed something," you didn't. You were just distracted by the noise. The screen cut briefly to Trump. His expression wasn't rage this time, it was doubt. A flicker. Small, but real. And in that second, Denzel didn't just win a debate. He shattered a performance. The commercial break had ended, but the atmosphere hadn't recovered. Cameras resumed rolling, yet nobody moved the same. Even the sound guy's hand trembled slightly as he adjusted levels. The moderator glanced between the two men. "Let's talk about unity," he offered, too late. Trump leaned in first. "Unity? You don't get unity by whining, by criticizing leaders who had the guts to run this country. You get it by strength. By dominance." Denzel didn't look away. "You think strength is yelling the loudest?" he said. "True power is staying grounded when everyone's watching, and more so when no one is." Trump raised a finger. "Oh, so now you're a philosopher too?" "No," Denzel replied evenly. "But I've seen more truth in the silence of grieving mothers than in any campaign speech you ever gave." The room fell still again. Trump's face flushed. "I was elected, remember? By millions. And some of them regret it," Denzel shot back. "But let's not pretend you climbed a mountain. You bought the ladder, painted it gold, and sold the fall as a victory." Gasps. Again. The camera panned to the audience. Several faces nodded. Others looked down, conflicted. Denzel continued, voice unwavering. "You called yourself a patriot. But when the country needed healing, you held a match instead of a bandage." Trump leaned back, eyes narrowing. Denzel turned to the crowd, voice rising slightly. "We live in a time where truth sounds like rebellion. Where decency gets laughed off as weakness. But I'm telling you right now, truth doesn't flinch." Thunderous applause broke out, not wild, but heavy. Grounded. Real. Trump didn't speak. He just stared. And for the first time in years, it felt like someone had made him listen. The tension was no longer theatrical. It was human. Palpable. As if everyone, even the production crew behind the cameras, realized something was shifting. This wasn't just entertainment anymore. Trump adjusted his cufflinks and finally spoke with the venom he'd been holding back. "You're a pretender, Denzel. Playing tough from your Hollywood mansion. I've had real enemies. Real pressure. You read scripts. I write history." Denzel didn't flinch. "You write spin," he said slowly. "You market fear. You wrap ego in flags and call it patriotism." Trump sat forward. "You think you scare me? You think words scare me?" Denzel smiled, but it wasn't pleasant. "No, Donald. I think honesty does." There it was. The sentence hit like a gavel. Final. Precise. A ripple moved through the audience. Trump's jaw tensed. "You talk like you've been on the front lines," he hissed. "You haven't seen what I've seen." Denzel's tone dropped. You mean the view from a golf course while the country burned? Or the silence when people begged for words that mattered? The moderator tried to speak, but was drowned out by claps and murmurs. Denzel looked into the camera, direct, intimate. To the people watching this, if leadership looks like cruelty and selfishness to you, that's not on your screen. That's your gut telling you something's wrong. He turned back to Trump. You keep talking about strength, but you run from truth. And eventually, even the loudest liars run out of breath. Trump's eyes flicked to the crowd again. He was no longer performing. He was reacting. And America could feel the shift. For the first time, the studio didn't feel like a stage. It felt like a courtroom. Not of law, but of truth. And in that courtroom, Denzel wasn't playing to the crowd. He was delivering the closing argument of a lifetime. Trump took a long breath and narrowed his eyes. You keep pointing fingers, Denzel. But what have you risked? What have you built besides applause and ego? Denzel slowly leaned forward, voice low and steady. You want to know what I've built? I've built respect, Mr. Trump. Not bought it. Not bullied it into existence. Earned it. He paused. The room waited. You built towers. I built trust. You hosted chaos. I held space for stories that changed lives. And here's the truth, your power ends where accountability begins. The audience was silent. Breath held. Nobody moved. Trump forced a smirk. You think moral high ground wins elections? No, Denzel said, standing. But it wins legacy. And you wouldn't know what that is because legacy isn't printed on hats. Trump stood too now, both men facing each other, unmoving. The moderator tried to mediate but his voice barely registered. Denzel continued. Your empire is built on division. Mine on connection. Your weapon is distraction. Mine is clarity. And right now, the American people are seeing the difference. Trump spoke, but the mic picked up only the beginning of his sentence: anger, defensiveness, denial. Denzel raised a hand and addressed the audience directly. You get to choose who writes history, those who scream the loudest, or those who stood when silence was easier. A young woman in the audience shouted. We hear you. And that was it. For the first time that night, Donald Trump had nothing left to say. The lighting hadn't changed. But the atmosphere had. The audience leaned in, quiet now, not because they were told to, but because something real was unfolding. Trump leaned toward the camera, his tone sharp, his voice raised. This country doesn't need lectures from actors. It needs action. It needs spine. Denzel tilted his head, calm again, almost surgical in tone. And yet you run from your own reflection. You fear a mirror more than a mic. Trump scoffed. I built an economy, revived a military, and scared off global tyrants. What exactly did you do, Denzel? Denzel replied without blinking. I gave people hope without making them afraid first. The studio audience gasped. But Denzel didn't bask in it. He wasn't there for applause. You think I'm just a performer. But performance is all you've done. 4 years in office, and the loudest thing left behind is your echo. Trump's hands gripped the table, his voice tightening. You talk like a preacher. No, Denzel interrupted. I talk like a man who listened before he spoke. Something you might try, if you ever wanted to lead without a teleprompter. Trump leaned back, visibly rattled now. The moderator tried to regain control. Gentlemen, let's redirect. No, Denzel cut in, still focused on Trump. He started this. Let him finish it. Silence again. You want power without pain. Spotlight without sacrifice. Respect without responsibility. But the stage you stand on, Donald, it's cracking. And this time, you can't build another one with blame. Trump's face turned red, but not from confidence. From pressure. And the audience knew, he was finally losing control of the room. The moderator, clearly overwhelmed, finally spoke up. "All right, gentlemen, we're out of time." But neither Denzel nor Trump moved. Their eyes locked, not with hatred, but with something heavier, unfinished business. Trump straightened his suit jacket and tried to recapture the energy. "You talk a lot about truth, Denzel. But truth doesn't make you a leader. Power does." Denzel stepped forward. Calm. Precise. "Then explain why the most powerful men in history feared a child with a question, more than an army." He turned to the audience, scanning their faces, young and old, hopeful and tired. "If power was enough, we'd be healed. If volume fixed things, we wouldn't be bleeding. But here's what power can't fake: presence." He pointed at Trump. "You show up for cameras. I show up for people." Trump laughed. But there was no sound in it. "That's a good speech, Denzel. Maybe it'll win you an Oscar." Denzel smiled. Then stopped. "You're right. It might. But history doesn't hand out trophies. It keeps receipts." He turned to leave, but then paused. "And history doesn't forget the silence." He walked off stage, slow, intentional. Not storming out. Not dramatic. Just done. The room didn't explode. It paused, as if unsure what had just happened. Trump stood alone in the frame, blinking under the lights. And somewhere, watching from home, millions leaned forward, rewinding the moment when power finally looked small. In a world where noise is power and truth is buried beneath applause, one man reminded us that presence speaks louder than performance. Denzel Washington didn't just confront a president, he confronted a culture. And sometimes, that's where revolutions begin.